Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Caring Conversations. I am your host, Rachel Hill, joined, as always, by the wonderful, amazing Jordan Evans of Care. Hello, Jordan.
Hey, so excited for today's episode. I think I get excited for every week's episode, but this one, these two people that we're bringing on are really exciting. They are both experts in engagement. So let me just enough small talk. Let's just dig in. So
I am ready.
A little bit of background behind me and like what my intentions were behind this episode is my background has been in nurse recruiting, and I remember recruiting during COVID. How many people were just leaving because it's hard. It's hard. COVID was hard on our entire workforce. So, over the past 2 years, we've just had like a mass exodus of people leaving the industry or even just leaving this part of healthcare and going into hospitals. And so I really am excited to talk about today just the idea of engaging our senior living Careforce. So how do we rebuild and retain our workforce, and then as an industry, so not as just individual communities, because as we've learned from like 2 weeks ago or the week before, is we've learned what individual communities can do and do well. And now we need to know what we can do as an industry. So first, who we're bringing on is Kara Stiletto of Magnet Culture.
Hello.
Stiletto.
There she is. I know, right? You're always like trying to like center yourself. I know. It's fun.
And we are also bringing on another guest who comes from the Purpose Equation. There she goes, Anna Hall, the Purpose Equation. So I found Anna and Kara through some LinkedIn searching of friends, and they both come from the field. And so I really am excited to hear about both of you. Anna, can you tell us more about the Purpose Equation?
The Purpose Equation was born in senior living because I grew up in senior living. I spent the last 25 years of my career there, and all of my purpose teachers descended in my life and taught me what purpose is and what it isn't. So the Purpose Equation is a framework, not a gimmick, a framework that's evidence-informed, that helps individuals discover and activate exactly what helps them give and get meaning and joy in life.
I know, Jordan, I both yes.
Meaning and joy in life.
Compelling.
I know. We all need that, please.
We do all need that.
Yeah. Kara, tell us about the Magnet Culture.
Sure. So we focus solely on reducing unnecessary employee turnover. And for the last 10 years, we have been reducing turnover by making managers more effective in their roles, by bridging generational gaps. I happen to be one of the oldest millennials. So for the past 10 years, I've been helping the older managers understand the younger workforce, and also the younger managers understand the entire workforce, and bridging those gaps. So we do a lot of leadership development. And I started my career 20 years ago in senior care with a state association. So that's why today, nearly, I would say between 60 and 70% of our business nationwide is with senior care and senior living groups.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I want to just quickly, I got to do the shameless plug. I actually spoke with Kara for our Foresight Radio podcast. I will drop that link here in the comments once we're done with the episode. So dynamic, so much great info. And as another elder millennial, I was so excited to talk with Kara and really dive into sort of, exactly what she said, bridging that gap. And I think that eliminates so much of this like butting of heads that we can sometimes see from the old guard and the new guard, quote unquote, because I think we can work together. And that was my biggest takeaway from our conversation. So it was a good one.
Yeah, that was fun.
Thank you.
That's interesting, talking about, the old guard, the new guard, specifically in our Careforce, like bringing it back to the Careforce. You have a lot of people who are CNAs, been CNAs their entire career. And then you have nurses who jump out, and now they have this they're someone in their early 20s, late 20s, and now they have to manage a team of CNAs that have been CNAs. And so you often have that. I've seen this actually happen on the floor. It's like very, got someone tell you are 20 something. You don't tell me I got this resident. I got this. Kara, how many times have you seen that?
Oh yeah. Yes. Our generational program is called They Drive Me Crazy, because it goes in either direction, you all. Okay. So whoever drives you crazy, you're probably driving the other side crazy, because people were just raised differently. And across our entire workforce, it's not just by age. It is really about the way you were raised, where you were raised, who you were raised by, and what exposure did you have during your upbringing. So to your point, Jordan, earlier about, you may have younger workers managing older CNAs, for example, but they actually grew up with a very traditional conservative upbringing. They have very traditional mindset about what professionalism looks like and the importance of punctuality and things like that. Or you may have somebody who's younger or older who has the exact opposite thought about flexibility and work-life balance and what professionalism looks like and things like that. I've got several tattoos. And so, does that make me unprofessional now? Things have really changed over the years. So there's a lot of conversations to be had in that space.
That's interesting. You mentioned work-life balance and flexibility and all the things that our industry is not known for. And so how do you, I'm kind of like pivoting between the two of you. Anna, how do you create that culture when it's not in our industry? And of course, we have wonderful CARE that's trying to bring that in, and you have small little people who are doing it, but industry-wide. I know I'm kind of asking you to solve the world's problems here, but how do we move this to the mainstream so that these ideas aren't seen as so outside of the box, and you don't have this person looking at this one singular person bringing in these new ideas, but we're all trying to bring them in together?
Well, I'm going to answer your question by just not answering it and instead say this: senior living is about people caring for people. Many industries are, but we are in a really special place here where the difference is made, I think, one interaction at a time. Mm-hmm. Companies can have brand statements and they can talk about purpose and lifestyle, but what it really comes down to is, are your residents and families referring other residents and families to your communities? That's the highest, likelihood for a move-in and a happy move-in and a long-term move-in. And here's the thing about purpose that is so special. Everybody has it. And furthermore, you don't find or give someone purpose. You can't give another person purpose by looking outside, by, giving them a new title or giving them money or, even more flexibility. Purpose comes from looking inside, and purpose comes from managers caring about the whole person that is working there. And I think regardless of generation, human beings are human beings at work and in their regular life. So this whole work-life balance thing, I think it's a false dichotomy. I really think that, and actually McKinsey statistics show that 70% of employees across industries are looking and expecting to find a sense of purpose at work. 70%, because we spend our life there. So regardless of how many hours we have or what our role is or what our responsibility level is, if we can help our employees feel seen and valued for their basic worth as a human, i.e. purpose, then they're more likely to be engaged. They're more likely to want to stay. They're more likely to go above and beyond. That's my little side reference to quiet quitting.
I just caught that.
But I think it's about really inspiring people to bring the best of themselves at work and have an opportunity to be human beings. Right. And I think if senior living put as much focus on employee thriving as we do on resident thriving, it would be a whole different ballgame.
Yes.
And it's funny because I wanted to jump into, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, and Kara, I think this
Yes.
makes me have a question for you, because again, going back to this sort of old and new guard thing that I was talking about, where it's like, you know, yes, like I do want to have purpose at work, and I want to feel like I'm doing something bigger than just me, and helping serve this industry by what I do, my small part of helping, you know, tell stories in senior living. That's my very small piece of this puzzle, right? So my point being is that seems to be so quote unquote hippie-ish, right? Or like this new millennial thing, and we're soft and this and that, but I think it's so important, and I feel like how do we even start that conversation between sort of how at least my parents were, you know, my dad was in the military, my mom was a nurse, they were much older when they raised me, so it's like all of these sort of core values they have are very, very different. It's just sort of a job is a job, is a job is a job is a job, and you go and you show up and you support your family and you make this money. So where do we even start? Where do we start this conversation?
Oh my goodness. You guys have thrown out so many words and phrases and thoughts that I'm frantically writing here, all kinds of notes. So one thing is flexibility, and even that term work-life balance that we use means different things to different people, you all. It's not just work from home, which we don't do in senior living. Okay. It's not even just different schedules. You know, that's great if we can let people self-schedule as best we can and give more options for shift lengths and times. You know, great. We need to offer as much flexibility as we can. But to Anna's point about purpose is if they feel more purpose, then they won't need as much of the separated work-life balance because they feel fulfilled. Right? They're feeling fulfilled even when they're at work, and that it's not as much a job as it is a calling and a purpose and things like that. So lots there to unpack, but also with this whole idea of, you know, a job, I've heard so many people say, well, you know, I shouldn't have to thank you for showing up. That's why you get a paycheck. It's like, okay. Well, but they can go anywhere and get a paycheck. And so we do have to go above that and really create a place where people want to work and where we're helping them connect themselves to the mission and to that purpose and seeing that come to fruition every day. So as far as different ways of thinking, just be really careful not to be critical. A lot of people go immediately to judgment or, oh, that's ridiculous, right? I mean, I think you guys probably do this when you're driving, right, Jordan? Somebody passes you and you're like, they need to slow down. And if someone's going too slow in front of you, they need to speed up. You're judging them. You're telling them, you need to drive the speed I want you to drive. And that's how we are at work too, that you need to show up when I would show up, which is not at your scheduled time, but 7 minutes prior or whatever it is, you know, that they would show up. So I think for a lot of things, it comes down to people weren't raised like you. People don't think like you. They don't have the experience and the past mentors that you have. So we need to reduce that judgment and just communicate our expectations and be much more clear and open and more curious about other people. Let's ask them instead of saying, oh, that's ridiculous. I don't know why she thinks that's okay. Ask of, okay, you're working in a different way than I work. Can you help me understand, you know, your approach? Because that's not how I was taught, or that's not where I was coming from. Instead of, you're doing it all wrong.
But Kara, it's hard to not should all over people.
Oh, yes, we should all over people all the time. Even in our marriages, right? Come on now. Yes, you're exactly right. It's easier said than done, but I will tell you the best managers are the ones who are reducing their judgment. They're becoming more aware of it, and they're saying, okay, people older than me or younger than me or whatever, somebody who grew up in a city versus on a farm. I mean, night and day. Doesn't matter what year they were born. That's a totally different upbringing. So we really just need to understand each other. And when you're in management, you're going to have people all across different diverse spectrums of how they were raised and how they see the world. So you better be taking off your blinders, my friends, and opening up that lens to see things from all different perspectives.
It reminds me so much of not the golden rule, but the platinum rule.
Yes.
The one to live by, right? Like treat others as they want to be treated.
Yes.
And so what I've seen the purpose equation doing, whether it's through workshops or cohort training or one-on-one, is it gives people from all different backgrounds, being raised differently, urban, farm, wherever, to come together in this realm of humanity.
Right.
And be able to put words to it. When you understand what someone you're managing values and what gets them excited, what brings them joy, you're going to be able to connect with that person. And instead of focusing on what they're not doing, you can then focus on their strengths.
Yes.
You figure out those intrinsic sources of motivation. Because the other thing I think senior living really needs to do is not only be able to hire and retain, but grow and promote from within. And again, that comes down to seeing people for who they are as individuals, and then helping them to grow in alignment with their most natural gifts.
Yes. And Anna, tell me if you disagree, but most
Jordan, we're not here right now, by the way.
No. We're hijacking your call. Okay. So most of the senior living organizations that I work with now, they have cut a fundamental need, which is team building. Because you just said, like, you have to get to know what motivates them, where their purpose is, that type of thing. And I'm not seeing that that's even happening, because we got to get them on the floor. Everybody's cutting onboarding too short. They're cutting down, they're speeding through everything, even staff huddles and whatnot. We're busy, just go, go, go. And I think so much could be resolved if we just sprinkled a little bit of team building into every interaction we have, right? More mentoring, informal mentoring, reverse mentoring from new hires to the old guard, all of that type of stuff. So I don't know how you feel about that, but I think
100% agree. I've even heard about this concept of work buddies, where someone, when they're being onboarded, they have someone that they can connect with and, learn the ropes. I think it's amazing. Look, I really do focus on the humanity of humans, which again, I'm going to boil down to purpose. And we are social creatures. If you want your team to communicate, if you want your team to collaborate, if you want your team to innovate, they have to have psychological safety. They have to be able to challenge the status quo. They have to have opportunities for learning, and they have to feel that they have meaningful connections with each other. I mean, that's what makes the team. Right. And so it's very short-term thinking. I understand it. I get it. The bottom line, potential recession, COVID, which is still like heartbreaking. It's still here, right? And there's probably going to be something else next, but we've got to invest in our people in the long term and have long-term thinking in building the teams and the culture, because culture is what happens when you're not there as a manager.
Yeah.
Got to invest in it.
Right. Yep. we say your culture is not posters on the wall. It's what walks down the hall.
Ooh.
So you can't just say we are integrity and, fun and customer service, resident focused, whatever, right? It's not that, if that's not what people are living when they talk to each other and how they treat each other. Yep. So yes, absolutely. But if we put ourselves in executives' shoes for a second, I get that a lot of it is easier said than done.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't think there is a living, breathing executive now that doesn't realize culture is important. You can't just pretend, that it's not important. So I think in the last just 5 years that most of the executives have figured that out. They just don't know what to do about it. moving forward? Like, how do we build a culture? How do I make sure, if I'm the executive level, either at the corporate home office, or even if I'm the administrator or a department head or whatever, how do I make sure that everyone on my team, every shift, 365, every shift is treating people better, and that's the culture 24/7, not just while I'm on my shift or MOD or anything like that. Yeah. So it is much harder because it takes time. A lot of companies were behind on culture, 5 to 10 years behind, if not more, when COVID even happened. And then when you don't have the culture in place, then the cards start to fall beneath you because you didn't have a strong foundation of the team building and the trust. Come on. How many people come in and we don't even build trust with them? And then they don't show up for a shift. Well, who cares? I don't even know the people that I'm leaving hanging. So what's it matter? They don't mean anything to me, right? We have to still connect a lot of those dots as well.
And again, in senior living, most people who are working in senior living, regardless of their role or status, they are here because they really care, right? Like, people find their purpose or activate their purpose in senior living. It's a beautiful place. Like, I credit part of who I am and what I believe in for growing up in senior living and having the opportunity to learn and grow from incredible mentors who took me under their wing and allowed me to make mistakes and saw me for who I was and believed in my potential. And if we can give back to the industry in that way and help senior living take care of its employees in the realm of purpose, I really think that's what can differentiate senior living from, its biggest competition, which is home. You can cultivate an incredible, I'm going to say the word, mecca of purpose and communities. But if you're not starting with your employees, it's just words.
Right.
So Kara and Anna, I want to unpack this, right? Because you both are, to me, it seems like you're getting at two big things here, which are empathy and communication, right? Like that's how you begin to build this culture. And I agree with that 1,000%. But these are things like I learned in therapy. I don't learn this at work, like in full
Yes,
transparency.
I want to point out to you, Rachel,
that
it is something that is way more blatant and obvious to us in senior living, because these are the same principles, and this is what makes me bang my head against the wall. These are the same principles that we apply to resident care.
Yes.
These are person-centered care principles. Like when Anna first started talking about, making sure that just how you opened it, talking about making sure that we see people as individuals, empathy, seeing their stories and hearing, and Kara, how you mentioned that people come from different places and we have to understand who they are. These are the same principles that we teach in person-centered care. These are the same principles that we pride ourselves on when we're, touring and people ask, well, will I be treated as an individual? And some salesperson or resident salesperson is saying, yes, well, we see all of our residents as individuals, and you get a tailored care plan and you get meals that are to your own benefit, and all of these things that we strive for in senior living is this individualized, person-directed care.
So why don't the staff get care plans? Right?
Or purpose equations.
Yes.
So you guys are exactly hitting on my point, right? Like, where it feels like we do all the standard training that you see in, when you're being indoctrinated into a new culture, right? Or new workplace, right? We have all this training and, your tax, all this stuff. But there's no empathy training. There's no, how to communicate effectively. I think half the reason any business, organization, anything fails is because of a communication gap. Yes. Any relationship, in my opinion, is because there's a communication gap.
Right.
So, with this show, I always want our audience to walk away with takeaways, right? So I feel like these conversations they're challenging, right? You're not going to solve this tomorrow, months from now, a year from now, but you can take tangible first steps. So I would love to hear from both of you of like, what's that first step? Because you can't just say, oh, guys, we're having empathy training today.
I mean, you can.
You can, but are you?
So, yeah, and to your point about communication, so we have a management training program called the Workforce Retention Boot Camp, and I remember when I was building it in 2018, which remember we were doing retention before retention was cool. Okay, like we were building this stuff back in the day, and when we built it, what was funny is we put, here's the employment market, the generational conversation, our magnet framework around how to reduce turnover. We put all this stuff in, and you know what everybody asked? Well, it has a communication class, doesn't it? You're including a communication class, aren't you? And at first I thought, are you kidding me? That's 101. That like, this is an advanced level, like deeper dive on things. And then it hit me, you know what? A lot of people know how to be a good communicator. They're not doing it because they're so busy right now. I would argue that the workload crisis is possibly even worse than the workforce crisis, of the shortage crisis, because everybody's being asked to do more with less, year after year after year, which is.
Can we erase that phrase,
model.
Please?
Yes. Let's do that. That's our mission, Anna. So, yeah, I think you're right that communication is key. And so now we've gone back and added all these, we call them skill building classes, because we were working on deeper dive and change the culture. And yeah, we do that. But now we have a how to give feedback class, and I'm sorry, I totally rolled my eyes when I said that. But I'm saying, like, the managers, people that we have promoted into positions of leadership, they've not been given these basic tools. So can we just teach empathy? Yes, Rachel. Yes, we can. But the problem is most of the companies and the executives I talk to, they cut training and development years ago. And so now they're finally realizing that kind of came back to bite them. And so I would say a first step is figure out what training and development your managers and supervisors need. Where's there a gap in what they're not doing to live out the culture we want to have? And let's put that training in place for them. Even if it is 101 communication, I would say actually emotional intelligence is one of our most popular classes right now, because whether you're a new supervisor or a 30 plus year of management executive, if one thing a lot of people don't know is your EQ can actually drop. It isn't like you just get better and better and better over time. Your EQ ebbs and flows as you stay connected with your people or become disconnected from them. So there are those kind of trainings and classes, and you can do them short microlearning. You can do big deep dives, whatever fits into your schedule. But companies have to start bringing back this leadership development because it does not come naturally to everybody.
I agree with you 1,000%. And what about you, Anna? I'd love to hear you weigh
What's
in
your
on.
homework?
I agree with Kara 100%. I'll add to that.
Please.
The three things that I advise is show, ask, and care. So showing is, we need trainings. People need to continuously learn. It's not a natural thing for most people to be a manager.
Right.
Please train people how to be a manager. But imagine if during onboarding, you found out what gave each employee a sense of joy, and then you implemented that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's complementary to training, but it's not teaching them. It's just showing them what that looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And then ask your team and your employees, what are your values? What brings you joy? What would you do if you could all the time and it had nothing to do with money? Like those questions get to purpose. So understanding your people. What's that?
Don't we do that for residents? Isn't that a resident intake? Don't we do that already?
No, first of all, we do not do that well enough for resident intake. A lot of resident intake is based on interests and hobbies. And even worse, I'm going to get in trouble for this one, but even worse is when we're asking about what were your hobbies 5 years ago. Who gives a Who cares? Sorry.
It's gross.
It's gross. Like, no, let's find out what are your values? So
Let's
that
not
we
emphasize
can
loss.
broaden an approach to touching a person in their brain and their heart and in their spirit, right? And then show that you care. And yes, we do this for residents all the time, and we're amazing at doing that because we hire people that do intrinsically care. But let's show our workforce that we care about their sense of purpose and that we can provide an environment that helps them flourish in their purpose. And it can be literally magical what happens when people are showed what purpose looks like and feels like. They're asked about it specifically, and then the care happens. Like, show that you care. The managers go above and beyond. Don't ask your people to do it. You do it.
Well,
Ooh, can't wait for the comments on this one, guys. This is gonna. Woo, Jordan, I want to let you chime in as we come up on time here. This has been a fascinating and ation discussion, ladies. So, Jordan, I want to let you dive in if you have any last questions for these two.
I am shocked at just how basic some of these comments are, and it's sad to me. I have a friend who works in HR and who got into this field and said to me after going to a conference, wow, some of these things are really like basic. And it's scary that other industries understand this like that. But our industry, the industry that actually expects people to care, has to be taught how to care. And it is creating not only a Careforce issue, but you're right. I mean, how we treat our Careforce shows how we treat our residents. And we don't ask, we emphasize loss constantly. We don't ask them what are their values. We don't ask our residents, we don't ask our Careforce. And so how can you expect to manage a person that you don't know? And how can you expect them to stay if you don't know? So, I mean, the shirt says it. Do you care?
Yes.
I mean, homework to everyone who's watching this is ask yourself that question. Do you care? How would you want to be treated? Follow the platinum rule. All of these basic things that make my head hurt. But we have work to do as an industry, and it's not just individual people. As we said last week, if you're coming to the conferences preaching to the choir, there's something wrong, or at least you need to hold the choir accountable. So that's that.
Yeah.
And with that said, what industry has more potential to care and to make purpose matter and to give people quality and quantity of life? No other industry has the potential that we have. And it's so exciting that conversations like this are happening and businesses like KARE's are flourishing, because I mean, I'm so excited for the next 20 years of senior living, new business models developing that maybe can help with workforce retention and management. The opportunity here to show other industries and schools and universities and just, Fortune 500 businesses, what caring looks like is right here at our fingertips.
100%. And I think the last thing I want to say is I think the piece of the puzzle that I think is missing, Jordan, to your point, I don't know if it's 100% that, the industry doesn't care. It's like maybe they don't have the tools. Maybe that's like one of the biggest pieces that are missing. So with that said, ladies, I want to give you the last word because I think you are both a truly bright light in this industry and are doing some really great work. So you both have amazing resources. Kara, let's kick it off with you. Where can people find you? And if they have questions for you and about magnet culture, please.
Sure. So LinkedIn is the best way to reach me directly. I'm the only Kara Soletto in the world. Easy to find. And our website is wereduceturnover.com. If you want some free resources, including a get to know you sheet for your team, if you want to have them fill that out, we created a little template for that. You can go to magnetvault.com. So VAULT, magnetvault.com has a bunch of free downloadable retention tools. And that's a great place to even look at the cost of turnover calculator, ebooks, all kinds of things are in there. So.
Beautiful. Thank you. And I will also leave that again in the LinkedIn comments so you all can find that. So thank you. And Anna, please.
So, Kara, we totally now understand how you are so ahead of the curve to be able to get that URL. Because nowadays it would never be available.
Right.
Purpose equation, I developed it because, again, growing up in senior living, we all talked about purpose, but what does that mean? You know, I even say giving and getting meaning. What does that mean? So I've created tools, programs, workshops, training programs, certifications that use a standardized, repeatable framework to take teams and individuals and to create programs based on the pillars of purpose. It's all evidence informed. So you can also find me on LinkedIn and at thepurposeequation.com.
Awesome. Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Kara and George. Thank you. Everybody brought the energy and the passion today. And it just goes to show how much we all care about retaining, our staff. It's important. It's important that our residents are cared for. That's a number one. And you can't do a good job at that if you don't feel cared for or seen yourself. You will not be your whole self at work. So guys, I can't believe it. Another episode in the books. This was amazing. We will be here. Jordan and I will be here every Wednesday, streaming live on the Foresight LinkedIn page and on our YouTube. So stay tuned, and we will be back for another episode soon.